Hello and welcome to Fuse Coding. I'm back this week and we're going to do some random design again today. We'll walk over to Drupal and see what we have. For those of you who don't know me, I'm edA-qa and I work over at Fuse where we do mobile design and programming tools, I guess, for mobile devices. And we focus on making it really easy to do designs very quickly, and we're going to try it out today, see how that works. If you have any questions during the show, just feel free to ask and I'll try to answer them. If you have feedback, you can always join me on Twitter. You can join us in the Fuse tools over our showcase community on Slack. Many places to get back to us. Try it out if you're uncertain. Let's jump right into it. I said I didn't choose what design I wanted to do today, but I opened a few of them over at Drupal to see what we have. And the first one came up is the mobile banking. It's like a popular idea. You have it. It has a clever use of credit cards and it's a little bit page scrolling, but I was thinking maybe this one looks a little bit too much like other ones we've done. It's very straightforward. I don't think there's anything too challenging for us here. And when I do these designs, I'm looking for something that maybe is slightly challenging. I simply don't know. If you want to do such a design, just let me know. I can always run through another one like this. The other one is this one. It's a home app, and I mentioned a lot in the other shows about designing for portrait and landscape, and this one would give us a very good opportunity because this is something, a home control app that you'd very much like to have on a tablet and not just a phone. So we can keep this one thinking, like maybe we'll want to do this one. We have this other one here, which is a selection-based one, and it has some nice graphics and animations. And I thought, really, we can do this, and I've actually done this demo before. Okay, except not that basket at the end. This little bit here, selecting, put it here. I've made a pizza demo once. I've done this, and I made an image here that did that animation. Again, not that basket part at the end. But I'm not sure if I want to do this today because I haven't done this animation across screen very recently from one node to another. So I'm not positive how easy that would do, and I don't want to sit here going through it too much. I don't want to sit here stumbling the whole time trying to figure that out. So I might have to look at it again and come back to this one. So I'm going to like this one here, and we'll come back to this because I think we can do it like, there we go. And we can come back to this one another time. And this is again from Johnny Vino. He's doing a lot of these UI apps that are very, very nice and looking. The other option we have is this cake one, and it appealed to me for the same reason as the smart home one, because it has the potential to be used in multiple orientations. You can use it on a tablet or a phone, and we have a scrolling selection. We have a selection up here, and we have multiple scrolling things. And if you had a wider device, you'd be able to see more of them. The issue is here, and I might put a like on this one and come back to it. There's a couple issues with this one which you have to worry about when you see a lot of these designs, is that the colors of this one are very appealing, but to recreate this, and I realize now it's going to be extremely hard because of these images. You notice he's picked images that fit with his color palette, and that's going to be a challenge. If I just go down on some random images, it's going to be hard to find something that fits with the color palette. Now there are ways to fake it, and so it's an option we could fake it. You could actually fade the scale to gray and then put a color overlay on it in Fuse, but it's never going to quite look the same because you're never going to have these nice highlights here. And we don't really have a filter that can do that, and it wouldn't work in native mode, and it's something you'd really want a server for. So what I think I'm going to do today then is, like I said, I was browsing slightly. We can come back to this one. I like this one too if I find images. I think I'm going to do this one today. We're going to have to worry about icons here a bit, but we can use placeholders initially. We can use placeholders. I can use some random icons. Or we can just use some Unicode here. We can use some Unicode images as well. That's an option here. They're not necessarily the most beautiful looking ones, but these are very basic icons, and the rest of the layout we can look at. And we can instead focus about how to do this in a dynamic, responsive way. For example, all of this stuff here is going to be sort of responsive and dynamic. But dynamic, I mean that the user of this app is going to add their own things. Obviously, you're not going to have a fixed lit of light, fan, air conditioning, television, computer. Somehow the user is going to add these things to the app. And so we're going to have to come up with the code that actually says how to create this. But we may not, we may leave out the add for now. We may just hard code a few in here. But let's focus on actually creating this first. And we have the scroll thing at the top here. And I guess these are groupings here. These are groupings for where it is. And I guess this is one called Appliances, All Rooms. It's sometimes hard to tell from here. This has two themes, a light one and a dark one. I don't know if we'll do the switch. I don't even know where you could do the switch on here. I kind of like the dark one in this case. It makes it a little bit more apparent how it works. And for layout, it's nice. If I'm demoing layout, it's nice to say, hey, look, layout has a nice demo because you can see it a lot clearer. So I didn't set up a application yet. I'm going to start it completely from scratch today. I'm going to go over to Studio and create a new project. This is the 1.7 release, so I'm not using a branch thing. I'm not using the questionable one, but I can't promise I don't have some other code in here interfering with it or something running with it. Then we have, what do we want? Smart Home app. Now sometimes I put them in streams, sometimes I put them otherwise. It depends on whether I want to complete it more. So I might put this one here because this is something we might want to actually extend to be more of. And I never know if I use dashes or not. I always wish these tools would show me whether you have dashes in this directory or not. It's hard to say. I guess there are dashes. Hello, mort-ora-y. Is that the name right? Welcome to the show. If you've not been here before, we're just going to run through this design and see how it looks. Ooh, we might have another design. Let's take mort-ora-y. Okay, let's check out this one here. And Breed mobile app. Okay. Okay. This one has a lot of stuff that would actually be quite useful to do. I don't know if it's going to be the best example for what I wanted to show because I kind of had it in the back of my head how I wanted to do the adaptive layout. So let's like this one. And I'm going to come back to this one though because I like these things. We've done these ones before and these little buttons in the bottom. There's a lot of little details on here which I'm going to do which are nice. So I've liked it. I'm going to come back to this because on another episode because there are some nice things in here. There's a lot of little graphs in here. So there's a lot of little details and I think it'd be nice to do. So thanks for that. But the adaptive stuff, I think what I'm going to show today, this will work better for the adaptive stuff I'm intending on showing now. And because although I try to do these things live, I do sometimes have stuff in the back of my head of how to do it. So I get switched too often, I get confused, but it is a great one. So as usual, I start up the app like this, and you can do a lot of work in the app. I tend to just go into compact mode, but the first thing I do is somewhere here, I keep forgetting where it is, I can open this in Sublime. That's what I want. There we go, Smart Home app. I don't know why I kept open the old app as well, but let's close all that off. So the Smart Home app, and we're going to need JS files. We don't put this by default in the project yet because this is still technically beta. But I think we should probably have a template sometime soon that actually creates all the setup by default export class. Where's it? Default class. Default class. And I'm going to stick a bunch in the main file. And this is the data side. You can do a lot of the design without actually having this file. The reason why I'm creating the files is I'm going to jump right into having the actual dynamic elements, because I think that makes it more interesting for a show, and it's one aspect that a lot of people don't get from our docs because our docs are not perfect in SAR yet because as it's a beta element. And again, I'm going to ignore most of this stuff here and just do it by hand. It's easy to explain it. And we're going to create items. So the first thing we're going to do is going to create these appliances in the bottom. So let's just create a bunch of dummy appliances first of all, or actually let's create a dummy layout first. Let's create a dummy layout. And we have an app, and we're going to have a client panel. The client panel is the one that gets you outside of the borders of the device. Something I worked on recently is more advanced ones. They do the iOS 10 layout. So client panel is kind of deprecated. Depending on what app you make, it'll still work. But if you need really fancy side panels and stuff, it will no longer work because it excludes too much area. But we have a solution coming out in 1.8 then that'll actually give you more control. So we have a client panel, and let's zoom in on this. Let's just view this one image. I should leave his name up, so every time I switch, we see the guy's name. It's always nice. Now focus on this bottom part here. Let's just worry about just that layout there. Okay, so we're going to have some sort of each statement. And I'm going to load my color picker first of all, because we just do everything based on close possible design. There's a color picker here somewhere. Digital color meter. And would you can pick the background color? I think it's Control-C. And you can stick this in the color here, I think. Oh man, what did I do? These keys are really weird in Sublime sometimes. It's actually this tool here. It doesn't actually seem to color. Copy. Copy. We're here. The copying is not so helpful. Something here. Come on, copy something. 25, 26, 32. If it didn't work, I'm going to remember 25, 26, 32. I don't know why it doesn't work. 25, 26, 32. I don't know why it's not copying. This tool is weird. Okay, but at least we should have that color. What's it complaining about? Oops. Screw up the tag. I forgot what it's called. An app is called something different. It's not color. It's either clear color or is it background. There we go. It's like the same background. And we'll copy the main color here as well. So in the color meter, we're going to copy this one because we'll use this one a lot. Let's see. I don't actually, it's not actually copying. I try every combination of... Oh, it's 2-key combination, so it's something something. That's just weird. Shift Control. I don't know why they have these weird color combinations. The app's already running. I should have just had Control-C. We're going to use something here called a... We're going to use a panel. And first of all, we're going to have an each in here. And we'll just throw a count in here first of all, just to throw some items in. Let's throw 10 of them in. And each of these items is going to be a panel with a padding. Looks about to be 5. Looks a margin about 5. We can do that. And it has a rectangle in the background. Layer equals background. And this is the color we copied from the app. Or not. Come on, silly program. So I'll just leave that open over there. Say hash 25. This is probably better than copying 2D. And that can't be right. Oh, that color was wrong. That's why. Yeah, because I was saying this had to be brighter. So 1D, 1E, 1D, 1E, E, 2A. I know a lot of people love to work in hex, but actually if I'm coming up with colors on my own, I almost always use the RGB values, like an actual RGB floating point values, because I find them easier to work with. But this works too. Corner radius. This is a smaller corner radius we're used to. Let's guess at 8. I still have a hard time visually guessing what corner radius is. And what do they have in here? We're just... For now, we're going to give these things a width. We're going to say the width is 200 and the height is 200. And we'll fix that later. And we're going to put some text in here. Alignment equals bottom center. And we'll just say something for now. Value equals appliance. They love their uppercase. A lot of these designs love uppercase. I'm not sure it's actually that good, but let's not worry about it for now. Font color. Font size equals... It's actually text color, sorry. Where's color actually works? I keep choosing text color. I think color actually works on its own. I have memories of like properties that we used to have. So you notice the issue you have now is we have one appliance. There's actually 10 of them here, but they're all happily overlapped right on top of each other. Now I'm not so convinced that we actually have the right colors here. So let's see. It's because of the GIF quality in here. You have random sorted colors. So apparently those are the same color. They don't look to be the same, but that might be because of the contents in it. 1D, 1E, 2A. Okay, but the main thing is we want to have the layout here. And so the basic layout, you say, well, how do I get a layout? I want 3 across. And your instinct might be to choose grid, because it looks like a grid, but in this case it's not what we want. We don't actually want a grid. We want something called a column layout. And we say the column size is 200. Now, what column layout does this says, whatever space I have, make the columns 200 wide and fit them in. Of course, more than one don't fit in, and I think a column width is too big here. So let's put 150. And now more fit in, but we have a fixed width here, and this width now says, well, I'll take rid of this width. Let's just adapt to the width we have in there. So now we take that width, and we have this extra space though, and that extra space isn't so good. Now I have to look up again. There's a property, of course, that says to change the spacing of it. Column layout. You'll notice that column layout is not one of the ones, like most of the layouts have things, explicit ones like stack panel, which is a stack layout, a grid, which is a grid layout, wrap panel, which is a wrap layout, and column layout doesn't have one because we're going to think of a name for column panel, and it's not as common, and I actually don't think there should have been a wrap panel because it's not used often enough. So column layout has its own. You just put it in here. Any panel can have a new layout. You can even use stack layout here as well, or grid layout, and there's many places where that's helpful. And so we have a column spacing first of all. Let's put that in before I forget. Column spacing equals 5. Then we can get rid of the margin here and put it up here as well. It's better to put the spacing on the layout rather than margins in the individual items. It just feels more correct. And item spacing, of course, as well. Item spacing. It's 2 directions of spacing in this case. They don't have one name because they came after each other, so we can't use the same name. And the one I was looking for is sizing here. Sizing is the important one. Right now, sizing is strict. And by strict, what I mean is that I said 150, so the columns are 150 wide. But you have all this extra space. Now you could actually live with this and just center within that by putting the panel centered, or you can do fill. What fill does is make this even more responsive is, assuming I don't have an error. Alright, the column layout doesn't have margins, sorry. Can't do that there. This has to go up here. Okay. Now what fill does is it says, well, whatever space you have, you divide it by 150 and you come up with a number of columns. In this case we come out with 2 columns. But don't make them 150 then, just take that space and fill it up. So you have 2 columns. So if we went down, you'll see them get down, and then you go down to 1. And if you get big enough, you'll get up to 3 columns. And so this gives you your basic responsive layout for a device. This alters the design a little bit. You have to pay attention now that these things aren't going to be square. If it's vitally important that these things are square, then you'll have to apply a box sizing to this, a fill aspect, and you can force them to be square. Now I'm not sure if we should force them to be square, because the issue is you force them to be square, then all the text size has changed, but let's just show it anyways. So on this panel we can say box sizing fill aspect. Now again, the weird word here for box sizing, why you just don't say aspect, has to do with the potential that there are other ways to do aspect, and when I first wrote this, we had a few lined up. This fill aspect basically covered most use cases, and nobody's actually come to the other needed use cases yet, so in retrospect, if we knew that we would never use those other use cases, we could have just dropped this box sizing and allowed aspect to specify what you had, and we may still do that now. Aspect of 1 makes things square, and you see they're square now. It forces aspect to 1, and that's good. So we have square. Regardless of how wide they are, now just be aware different devices are going to have different heights then. Okay, so they have different heights, but that gives us our basic layout here. We have that. We have the basic layout. And I think we need some more spacing here. We put column spacing at 10. Column spacing is between the columns, and item spacing is between the stacked here. What you don't see here is what this thing supports. Why did I accidentally close that? Is that these can be different heights. So each item doesn't have to be the same height, but it works fine for this too. You could also, if you have a fixed size item, you could also use a wrap panel, but the column panel works well. So we have the basic panel here, and this will be our basic layout. And I want to show this first. Now let's actually go create some of those items. What do we have? We had a few items. I'm trying to see what this says. Queues. Okay, so this is actually showing the amount of electricity used. And his numbers appear to be random. Because this light, a 25 kilowatt light, that's a lot of energy for a light, but I'm guessing he's talking about joules here, so kilowatt hours. Maybe this is kilowatt hours, but even 25 kilowatt hours seems like a lot to use for a light and a fan. But let's just put random numbers in as well. That makes it more fun. Let's just pretend this light, you have this light in the room that lights up your entire neighborhood for like in the middle of night, and you just turn it on at night, and so it's a 25 kilowatt bulb. You have a concert or something. But let's see how the data for this would look. Ignore my phone, it's ringing a bit. I meant to turn that off. I don't know why it keeps turning. Alright, so what we have to do is we have to have items. And so we want to have an item, and I'm going to make a class for it. We don't need to export this one, class. Now, I guess we could call them appliances. It's uncertain. Let's just call them... Let's call them item and be generic. Sometimes it's useful to be generic. And these are going to have a name, and we're going to set also a, yeah, let's set a color, and let's just say energy used. The reason why I'm using a class, you could also just use an object directly, but the class prepares you for doing more things with it, and so I'm just trying to be a bit more correct. And so we can have this dot items, and we're going to create a bunch of items by default right now. And this is where I say the dynamic part we're just going to leave out. We'll say new item, and this is whatever they have, light, and whatever color we want. Let's just grab some of these colors. Not that the copying is ever working, so let's just quickly go. This tool is kind of annoying. FFC42E, FFC42E, FFC42E. Now, realistically, coming from a database, because this data would normally be loaded from a database, you're not going to have hex values. You're going to have RGB, actual integer values or something. But this makes it convenient for us now to do this. And this just has a value of 25. Let's create another item called fan. It looks somewhat green, so we're just going to take random sort of things, 2E, and it's going to have a value of, doesn't matter, 15. New item is air conditioner. Now it's good to have some long text, and this is one of the few ones I've seen where they have long text and short text, because it's sometimes not easy to use. And is there any way to keep apps on the top? Probably not, okay. And so this fan will take a color as 2769FF, 2769FF, 2769FF. Whatever, doesn't matter what the value is. It should probably be more than a light. Let's create one more before we start checking how this looks. Let me create the television. They have a slightly blue television. I want a slightly red television, or whatever, 88FF. Let's just choose this. So we have some items, and this will be loaded from the database. Obviously, it's going to hard code. You will load it from a database, or from a local store, from a server, not necessarily a database, or some remote, sort of server, usually a REST API. Use the fetch command. But this gives us the basis for how we set up. We have these items. Now in the main view, instead of count, we can say items equals items. And the color now is going to grab the color from that item. And we're going to stick with our uppercase thing here. We're going to say to upper name. And we're going to also select another one here. These things, this is weird. It's hard to decide. When you have only 3 items, it's hard to decide what layout are these. Is this a stack layout? Is it a dock panel? And in this case, now, you might be tempted to say it's a stack layout, but that's usually wrong. Stack layouts have a dynamic size. Whenever you have a fixed sort of size, a subtractive layout as I call it, never use a stack panel. The ones that support subtractive layout are a grid and a dock panel. Subtractive layout being you have a fixed size and you want to partition it. Dock panel and grid are the options for that. So in this case, let's use a... Well, if we have to vary the font size is going to stay the same. We're going to let the icon get bigger. So either dock panel or grid, but let's use a grid in this case. Grid. Grid. And we can leave the box size and padding and a height. We can actually take off the height. I think we shouldn't need the height now because it's going to have used the width of the item to get the box sizing. And it's going to have rows of auto, probably 1.5. Actually, no, sorry, I got it. Auto, auto. So the text is going to auto size, and the first row is going to have a different one. And the layer background, it should be ignored. And then we just have an image for the first one. We don't know what's going to be yet. Let's just stick a circle in there of the correct color. And I changed that background. I wasn't supposed to. That color here, I changed the wrong color. 353640. 353640. Again, that's probably meant to be a more different color, but the GIF, again, I'm going to voice my dissent for the GIF format. What a horrible format. I wish it would die. It did die, actually, and somebody resurrected it for GIF-V. Whatever. Not a good format. So we have a color. That's the first one, the second one. And then we have in the bottom one, alignment. We can take off this alignment here and just say center. So you border alignment equals center. Value equals... And what do we actually say here? We said... What do we call this? Energy. Energy kilowatt hours used. Let's pretend it's kilowatt hours. He just said kilowatts, which is wrong, and I'm a stickler for details like that. You're lucky I don't write a big J in here for joules, but we'll use the common appliance convention. And this one is a bit darker. It's actually, in the graphic, I would say it's not contrasting enough. So we'll put it actually lighter than what they have there. And it has a smaller font size. Font size equals not much, 16. Let's see what happens now if we actually worked. I never get this right the first time. I should clear this out. So we need to end the grid. That's the main complaint. Items is not found. Yeah, that would help. We have to, when I created the state, I forgot to actually set the state to here. Now, since we modified the Mojang Pro, I actually never reloaded, so there's a good chance we don't have anything because the model's not there yet, so we have to rebuild this once because I changed the project file and it doesn't automatically detect that. Alright, sometimes it takes a bit to initialize the first time. There we go. But now we have the items and we have that ridiculous placeholder circle. But you can see we have them in here. We have the basic things, and we're going to notice right away this circle padding thing here. We're going to give it a margin of 20 because those icons are not nearly that big. Regardless of what icons we stick in there, it's going to have to be a bit smaller than that relative to the item. So that gives us our basic layout for that part. And again, this is responsive. And we're just letting the icon, you notice just the icon changes size, the text doesn't change size. Dealing with dynamic text size is a bit of an issue. You could actually make dynamic text size But because most apps don't have scaling text size, and because we've never really had that in most apps, desktop otherwise, I don't think most users will be used to it. You're not going to used to have like scaling text size. Efficiency-wise, it's better not to have scaling text-wise, but only very minimally. And fixed text size also helps when you want to do layouts, because you don't want to like be guessing as to what the size is. But here we have our nice responsive. So let's add a few more items to that. But notice the circle, we don't like the circle too much, so let's go and find some icons here. Let's just throw in a random emoji, Unicode light bulb, and I'll show how you can do this stuff too. We just have to find a way to copy it. Now, see, this is the problem with using emoji. If they're colored, we're not going to be able to apply our own color to them. So that's kind of an issue, but I don't have a source of icons for all of these things otherwise. And so I'm not sure how we could do that. I'm trying to wonder if we just use the colored emoji, or we add, or we add basic graphics from somewhere else. How many do I have to here? How many would I have to use? Fan, air conditioner. I don't have like any of those icons otherwise. Alright, well, we can cheat a little bit. Let's just use the emoji ones for now. I don't like that other site. Let's go to this one instead. Oh, they even have a copy button. Thank you. So we can stick this in the JS. We can say, well, the light, I'm going to have a color, and we're going to stick the emoji in. And that absolutely did not copy. There we go. So we have that emoji, and the icon here, obviously if you're doing your app, you're going to want to have a actual graphic for all of these. This takes a long time to come up with, and that would let you do it a lot better though. So this is actually an icon, and it's an emoji icon. We're going to stick it on all of them. And we're going to get the fan as well. Let's see if there's something called a fan. Or wind, I don't know, whatever we can do. Wind. I don't have a fan, so let's just do wind face. That could be air conditioner as well. Let's just put cold. Cold. Snowflake looks good. There's actually a lot of debate still, and there was more at the time with the choice of emoji. Not the emoji itself, but the colored fonts, because colored fonts produce a kind of an issue when doing any type of design stuff. Is that suddenly you have a font that can have a random... Can I copy just from here? It's too hard. You have suddenly have a random colors, and you have no way to control it. And these things are not designed just to be black and white, so you can't simply just turn off the coloring on them either, except Sublime somehow does this. And I'd be very curious as to how they did this, because I would really love to have this in Fuse as well. Oh, we have some weird combining character here. There we go. Because we'd want to apply the color as well. And I think they're just doing a highlight tiling, but we don't support that yet, and it's mainly because the devices don't support that either. But if we go to main view and we have this center, the circle now, because we can't control the text, the font too much, the color, I'm going to leave the circle there, or actually just take out the circle. And alignment value equals icon. Now the issue here is going to be that we don't have the right size. So this is going to be tiny, but we want it big. But I said font, we don't have the correct size. So font size, what is font size going to be now? So let's stick these in a panel. We're going to give it a name. In a minute, icon panel. Normally, I'd recommend against doing this, height of icon. You have to be very careful you're not creating a loop, because this panel, you should never refer to the height of the panel inside the panel itself, because that creates a loop. Except if you know the layout, this panel size is not dependent on its contents. It's stretching to fill the outside area, so we're not actually creating a loop. And so we have that size there. It might be too big, and because fonts tend to take a bit more space or less more space, you can simply times 0.8 instead or something. There we go. And I'm not sure where the other fonts went to. Where did my other icons go to? Uh-oh. So we copied something in there that broke it. And this again, this is an example here of why I don't really dislike them, but why colored fonts have kind of an issue is that when you have output like this, they mess with colors. So if you had like red notation, you had a red font, it's just hard to work with the colors. This one here is just causing us troubles. Oh, there we go. I deleted the comma. There we go. So now they all have an item. The snowflake apparently doesn't have a color, so we can give that one a color. We might as well just say color equals color. And this depends highly on the font. There's no color there. Sorry about that. So I would actually prefer now that none of these had a color. But again, if you're doing an actual app, you'd actually want to use graphics for all of these and not fonts, because I say you have this exact problem with colors and fonts. Fonts should only be used for cases where you really need text, where the user might need to enter something, and generally not for icons unless you have a specially designed font icon thing. So let's add a few more, because we need a few more to just get this working. And because we want at least 9 to have like the item that had there. I'm just going to repeat the colors because we don't use them right now, so I'll just speed it up. We can change the colors later. Let's create 12 of them. And what items does he have? In case we want to use the same items just for the text size. Computer, water heater, refrigerator. Computer. Water heater. Fridge. Washing machine, microwave, what else do we have? We may have a stereo, what's a good one? What's a good one to have here? I'll choose my one. I'm going to put the PlayStation in here. PlayStation. And what other one might we want to have? And I don't know. Let's just delete it. Let's have an odd number. Odd numbers are good too. They force the layout into positions. But now we have to get quick icons for all of these things. They shouldn't be too hard to get something like a computer. Very interesting. The icon, which represents a computer in most of these things, is a monitor. This is a failure of a lot of font designers, and it has to do with Apple and Google and the Android stuff. Is that this is not a computer. This is not a computer. These are monitors. And Microsoft has the right one, but it's really crappy. LG. And now normally I wouldn't be so concerned about these things, except this is part of Unicode, right? And the issue is that these are supposed to represent real things. They're not supposed to just be like iconic representations of something or other. They're actual, they're text values. It's like writing the word hello and having somebody render it as goodbye. That's just the wrong thing. I mean, or more correctly, having a monitor here instead of computer would be the same as you typing computer on the system and what's up, changing that to the word display on you. So I have a real problem with a lot of these things, and so basically anytime you use emojis, just be aware of the fact that they're absolutely useless for communicating. They're just there to look pretty. We need something that represents a heater. Let's just do a sun. fridge. I wonder if there is a fridge. Cold. What do we have? Do we have anything else for cold? Droplet, they have those in my fridge. Does everybody have those in their fridge too? You have those little droplet symbols. We don't know what, we don't have, I don't know why droplet represents cold in the fridge terminology, but it does. Washing machine, I don't know. Just say machine, there must be something for machine. Slot machine, fax machine. Let's have a fun washing machine. Let's pretend it's a washing machine for socks, and you never know if the sock's going to come back out, so we'll just throw something in. Again, the other problem I have with emojis is just really a random selectum of like images. The original set was to import, I think it was a Japanese chat channel that had these things, and now Unicode just had to cover all of them. Okay, I'm just going to put sad because we don't have one. But now they started adding random emoji, and it's like totally arbitrary which ones they add and which ones they don't add. So you're left with a whole bunch of stuff that you don't want and missing a whole bunch of stuff that you would want. Music's well represented somehow. The only if you notice why I'm copying the whole thing and not just the graphic, it is something I blame fault with Firefox. It makes it very hard to select individual items. So this is just the reason I'm doing it. Now I wonder if there's something for game here. Video game, we actually have one for video games. Okay, and let's see if we have enough there at least. I didn't change the colors because they're not really used, so we have some here. And we're going to want to scroll this part here, but I think this recreates that basic part of the display well enough to get us this far to have something here. And there's a padding on the outside, and I haven't put that in. The padding comes from the outside, but we have this. And this microwave here, it actually looks appropriate. You know, this is what your food looks like if you put it in there too long. You put the wrong food in there, and we can go with that. But this has to be a scrolling region as well. We want to be able to scroll through these things. Stick this in a scroll view. Maybe it should be inside of there, not outside of it. It's hard to say because of the margin, but I can put the margin on the scroll view instead. So now we can at least scroll through them. Now it doesn't matter how I have it. And so now it's responsive to this mount we have here. I wonder if we have a flipping viewport to quickly do a rotation. We don't. So a phone, in a phone you wouldn't have this slow resize. This is just a preview. In a phone you're going to have a quick rotation where it's going to be more like this, suddenly switch to this, and then suddenly switch back. For now we'll leave it halfway between, somewhere between we have this. Now let's work a bit more on the other bits of the layout so we can show a bit more of the responsiveness, and we won't work too long the individual bits. We have that, and again these are really big right now. It's because we've chosen the size. You have to choose a size that works well, and I think we're choosing too big because even on his wide display he already has 3 and we only have 2. So maybe the size is only 120. That's looking a bit more correct, and our font text size is all way too big. And you'll have to play a bit this. We have an issue right now, we think, on the actual size here, because we have different densities, and it depends on which viewport you have selected. So this is going to be the Google one. Oh, there's a flip aspect. There we go. So there's actual rotation. Sorry. And so you can change the basic to size if you want, and this includes the font size, so the density a bit. So we're going to have to decrease that font size there quite a bit. Or not quite a bit, at least a bit. Okay. And this makes sense in his display here. He's using some very narrow font. And I don't have a narrow font available. You'd actually have to put one in Fuse. I don't have fonts available quickly to look at, but I think you'll use like a narrow font, because a narrow font really helps in these cases where you have to put labels and pack them in. The narrow fonts let you pack a lot more in. The too uppercase isn't helping here a lot, but let's leave it. And focus on now, what do we have now? We have this section here, but you notice we have 3 sections. And I'm assuming this is per section what this looks like. So how do we do this top part? Let's focus on having that first of all. And I don't know what those little icons are there. And we have the power button, that's great too. Okay, let's look at how we do this layout now. We have a second part of the layout, and we have big items, and let's create the items directly. Class room. And instead of creating items, actually, yeah. All right, never mind. Sorry, I get distracted sometimes. New room, and the 3 rooms he has is the bedroom, new room, and a dining room. New room. I don't know what's this last one here. Well, we can just call it appliances. It doesn't matter. And you'll see this used a lot in UIs. If you're struggling for a term that applies to everything, it's better off sometimes just to pick the term that at least applies to most of the things, rather than to everything. Hello, Smith. Welcome to the show. We're just adding rooms to our display right now. So this needs a name. This dot name equals name. It probably needs an icon as well. So we're going to stick another one of these icons in here. It has a color as well, so let's stick a color and an icon. And it also has, well, it doesn't have energy. We're going to get to this. So it has this dot color equals color. This dot icon equals icon. And what do we have for color here? We're going to go back to our Holy World tool. 5555. It's hard to imagine that I'm not right in the right place. There we go. I don't like this on Mac. The pointer isn't actually pointing to the right place. The hotspot in the pointer is not valid. If you actually see, my arrow is actually in the blue, but in the magnified area it's not yet. The hotspot's in the wrong place on their cursors. 215E F9, 215E F9, 215E F9, 215E F9. If I don't get these correct, that's also fine. Hello, Oxygen Deprived. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for the suggestion of the tool. We don't need it today because I don't have a graphic. Control guys. Am I a control guy? Alright, so we have 290.275, 290.275, 290.275. 7F, maybe, I don't know what it is, whatever, works well enough. And appliances, we don't have a color for appliances, so we get to make one up. And I'll just take one of these ones that have the same color balance and rotate it 7F. And these all need an icon as well. We'll go back to Unicode. We'll just stick with the Unicode ones. Again, they're not appropriate for such an app, but if you need a quick layout, but you can't control the colors, so you're out of luck. But these colors appear to be random anyway, so oh well. Do we have a bed in here somewhere? A bed. It's a very boring looking bed. A bed with a person laying in it. How did this even make it into Unicode? Like, seriously, it's like you have a hotel and you have a love hotel, which is actually fine. This love hotel that can be hired by the hour. And this whole description for some of these things that make it into Unicode are like, ugh. So this made it here, and there's still basic expressions like exhausted and frustrated, which aren't in there yet, but oh well. Let's go with basic just go with bed. Not a very nice bed. Maybe our font has a better bed than what they have here. Wow, it had a lot of stuff. Had some combining character. And do we have a room? What could possibly represent a room? What did they use in the graphic? on earth is that? Is that, looks like the coat of arms or a chandelier or a table and chairs. Dining room maybe? Let's look for a table. Table comes with a ping pong and clamp. So this is what I have. We live in a world where Unicode, they felt that, you know, we didn't need a table, but you need to have a love hotel. I mean, who's deciding this stuff? And a clamp, you know? Maybe that goes in the love hotel. We don't know. So we're going to have a table or something. That's with food. Your controls and automation. Ah, okay. Smith, nice to know. So yeah, we're making a tool for smart homes controls. Just so happens we're doing that today. We're just doing the mock-up of that. Actually, adding a back-end is relatively easy, assuming you have a REST interface. If you have a REST interface, it would be very easy to add the back-end. Okay, so what do we want for an icon here? I want a shallow pan of food. Doesn't look. A pot of food looks to be about right. Let's use their copy because the other copy is going really weird. Let's compare what they have. So Apple's food looks a little bit yummy, but it has a crappy plastic bowl. Google's food looks really hearty. It's nice thick stew. It's got the wrong perspective on it, but it's got a nice red pot. And Microsoft has some weird brown thing floating in it. I don't know what that is. I don't mind the noodles either, but those chopsticks are a little bit short. LG's good. At least it has the right perspective. And HTC has weird floating drops. Facebook's looks okay. It's served in a cauldron though. Looks like a massive portion. Just think that if you had this as a bowl and those are your handles, this is a very large pot. Yeah, I saw that. The chat is... I missed this comment. I might be slow too. And oh wow, this food looks great. That's the plate I want there. The little whatever... I don't want to say sushi. It's some weird mixed plate, but it looks good. And Mozilla likes eggs, so they have two different colored eggs. Okay, so what does our font actually have here? What type of food do we get? We get nondescript green because it's doing that. And appliances, let's just do energy because we're missing that. No energy. Let's do electricity. Electrical. We have electric plug. That seems fine. Let's use the electric plug. Now, this is also hilarious here with these fonts. Again, totally random. You saw in the food that it was very regional and very different, yet for a plug, everybody seems to agree that the North American style plug, or in some cases the European one, is okay. Although Messenger might be using the UK one. Again, it's weird, and Microsoft seems to have a cross between a computer cable plug and another one. There we go. Let's go back. So we have our rooms, and we're going to stick the rooms now at the top. So I just want to create some basic data. We have the rooms. And the client panel, we're going to break this up into two now. We're going to dock the rooms at the top. So that's where they are. The rooms are up here. So we have a dock here, and we have a dock panel up here. And we have a scroll view. It has an horizontal orientation. Horizontal. And we also have a stack panel in here, which is orientation equals horizontal. Actually, I have this wrong. It's supposed to be this allowed scroll directions. And each items equals rooms. For each room, it's a fixed list, so we have a panel. I'm trying to think of what the height is, how we want it, what does it look like here. Has a name, and again, these basic layouts are kind of tricky to do, but this could be a grid, it could be a dock panel again. It could just be a normal layout with fixed sizes, depending on whether you want to make the fixed size for the element itself. If we do a fixed size for an element itself, we can just basically stick stuff around, but I generally don't like that because it makes it very hard to do dynamic sizing. So let's do a stacked panel. Each item is a stacked panel. And the first line has several ways to do the first one. We can just do an image. Let's do the icon. Let's do we have to do a second panel here as well. We can do a dock panel for the first one. Some of this layout, again, it's you always have to think in terms of panels if you actually want it to be in any way responsive and control with different sizes. The moment you start thinking of importing things like, well, this is at position 5.5, this is position 5.6, you really have to question whether it's right, because that makes it very hard to respond to size changes and very minor design changes. And somebody comes and says, can I make the font a little bit bigger? Then suddenly they're like, oh, now I'm going to move everything again. So the dock panel works here. We dock it to the left. Dock is subtracted because we have the space in this dock panel. Value equals icon font size. You can make it nice and big, this one. I'm going to center it wherever it is. And then in the rest of the space, we're going to center it to the left. Text alignment equals left center. Value equals, I think, what do we call it? Name or title? Name. Name. And what else do we have on here? We had something. I don't know what these things are yet. Little controls. Maybe Smith can tell us what type of things he'd want for these things to be here. There's a light. There's a biohazard symbol, I think, and so, you know, and some drop. They might just be these icons from down here. Maybe it's just trying to show that. I really don't know. But again, this is another reason you absolutely would not want to use the Unicode here, because you get to control color here. That's a thanks. All right, that's better. So it looks like it's taking the fonts from down here, which is going to pose a problem for us that we use these because I cannot control the colors of them. So again, this is pointing towards having little actual icons, graphics, and having graphics that you can color. In Fuse, what I recommend is you actually have graphics that are white against transparent, because then you can apply the coloring, and it's a multiplicative color, and you can put linear gradients in different colors. You notice they all have linear gradients here. If we continue with this app later, I'd go through and get graphics for all of them. But let's just worry about the basic layout here. So the second part of the stack panel. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's a bit, yeah, Smith, that makes a lot of sense. That's what it's doing. It's a bit less clear though, because it has a fixed list and it's not down here. But that's often what you get from design mockups, is a little bit of copy and pasting and not dynamic. Whereas in actual prototyping here, we can actually do dynamic. I say prototyping, but this is a functioning app. I mean, you could, instead of doing this hard coding, you could call a fetch to the server and grab this data and actually have the real app. So we're just going to stick some circles in here for now. Each count equals 5. Circle color equals whatever the color was. Yellow dark colors. Width equals 20. Height equals 20. We'll just make up the fonts there. And we'll leave out the last row for now and see where we have probably an error. I'm very good at getting errors. Center left. That makes sense. Always the vertical first. Okay, and alright, so I made a mistake. I have them overlapping. That's because I forgot to put a dock equals top on here. And I can already tell they're too small. And I forgot to put a color on them. So I forgot all sorts of things. Oh, Smith, so you're saying the bottom is... I was assuming that these were groupings. So you have a group up here. And then if you clicked on the group, you'd see the items in the group. And, oh, maybe there's another option here. Maybe there's one. I'm going to set it up that way, I'm going to assume I have an appliances group at the top, but it's unclear. It's unclear from the UX here what he wants. But I'm focusing on the adaptive part, the responsive part right now. So let's go with that. But, all right, whereas I needed the color. Oh, it's the same color as below. Being as though it's the same color as below, we're going to create color secondary. Float for UX value equals global color secondary. You might as well stick it that way. And we can have the exact same background, I think. Each item has this little background layer. Again, we got to change the font size. We need some spacing up here as well because they're all packed together. They look to be a bit too packed together. There should be a little space here, so I got something wrong there. Padding. What type of padding did he apply? Should be the same as the bottom. Actually, it looks to be a bit less. Padding. I put a padding of 5 only. Padding of 5. Going to give this a scroll view a margin of 5, although I think it's more. Item spacing equals 5. And I think I screwed something up here. Oh, I put the rectangle on the wrong thing. This is the outer stack panel. It's the individual items where I want the background. There we go. Now, obviously, we're going to probably have some padding there as well. It's on the wrong one, so the padding I put on the wrong one as well. And this one font here is supposed to be, I guess it's quite white. I said white. Oh, that's the icon. Put it on the wrong one again. Again, you can do most of this stuff if you want. If you're more the visual type, you can do a lot of this in the editor. Like I say, if you just leave this compact mode, you have the color selections around here, and that should update the file in the back. But as a programmer, I'm far more comfortable in the file, typing text. But these have to be bigger. So I'm gonna go back, and I also use compact mode in the stream just to show, because it takes up less space. Now, why are these so much bigger? What do I have wrong? These have a little icon around them. So the icon is actually doc equals left, padding equals 5, color equals color with text inside of it. And I think it's actually more padding, 10. Can't be more padding than that, did it? Oh. Got an error there. Alignment is duplicate. Okay, I don't know why it's an error. Oh, I did too much there. So, margin equals 5, padding equals 10, and it shouldn't have a color. We can actually, it has to have rounded corners, and sometimes you can just stick the rectangle in directly instead of making a layer. Background corner radius equals whatever the surrounding one was, 8, so it lines up. Rectangle. These colors are a bit extreme. Like, really extreme. It's because we don't have the linear gradient on it, and we don't have a different color. Many ways to tame it down. I just want to focus on this first. So the circles, we want to have a margin equals 5,0. Whoop, too much. Because it's applied to each one. Now this is the reason why you might want to use item spacing instead of margin, because the margin applies to both the circles. So a margin of 2 means there'll be 4 pixels in between. Whereas if you put item spacing here equals 3 or something, that'll apply just 3 in between each of them, and it's more convenient. But then you have to make sure the stack panel itself also has a margin on it to take care of the outer margin. And we have a bit more there. Now, would these all be the same size? That's a big question here. Would you actually make these all the same size? We can't tell here, and I just don't know. Because you have multiple ones here, it looks like they probably should be the same size, and you're just going to have to deal with the fact that the text might not line up. So let's make these a fixed size, because otherwise it looks really weird. Yeah, exactly. Smith is on it quicker. It makes it more uniform. And again, this is also still responsive. The top isn't quite responsive. I mean, it just fixed sizes, but it scrolls, so we're okay there. And you want to put some feedback there that it scrolls. It'll be more obvious when there's one clipped. People usually can tell that clipping means scrolling, but if you happen to have it line up exactly, you have to be careful about this in UX. I mean, the user may not realize this scrolls here. And so a lot of design, his doesn't show this. His is relying on the fact that it's clipped, but always designed for the fact that your phone may be this proportion, and the person's like, oh, where's my other appliances? And they can sit here looking at the screen the whole time like, where's appliances? Where's appliances? And just not realize that they can scroll over. So we need some sort of feedback. And we can use a trigger. We have a trigger. I don't know what to show visually. Scrollable we have. Scrollable. While scrollable. And we can stick that on the view on the top here. We're going to put a while scrollable. I agree, Smith, in that case. I think it should all be the same size. Maybe not the top and the bottom. Having the top thing here definitely the same size because they're the same item. They stay the same size. When things have different sizes, the users start thinking the size is significant, and if the size is not significant, it should be uniform. So we have it uniform on the bottom as well. Why is it not scrolling anymore? Alright, just rock for a second. And we should make something here while scrollable and scroll directions. And I don't know what to show here to make this scrollable. Maybe a half circle, an arrow. This is always a big problem. How do you make something look like it's scrollable? So let's put a little arrow on here. This is an okay case for Unicode. We're going to make a little emoji here, Unicode arrows. Take a random reference here as well. This is a crappy set. I don't like that one. I always go there first, then I come to another one. We want this big fat arrow here. This looks like a big fat arrow we can use. Text alignment equals right. Value equals big fat arrow. Again, you're probably going to want to come up with a graphic for this because there's only so much we can do with this. Color equals F, and I'm going to make it partially translucent so whatever's behind it shines through. Font size equals 32. This is actually going to be center right. I got an error. Text is not font size. I'm going to clear this so we don't have so much there. Font size. There we go. Whoopala, what went wrong? Wow, what happened here? Oh. Yeah, sorry, it's a scroll view. I can't stick this directly in the scroll view. So where's it? Because that's a limitation of scroll view. It's something on my list of things to fix. If you want somebody to blame, you can blame me. But they actually stick it right here as well. And it's because it's a change. If you have a change, that's fine. But there must be a scroll view. So you can do this. We're going to give the scroll view a name. Room scroll. And don't think our code is actually that wide, long. It's because I have a really big font. Just so we can see it in the stream. And we can actually move this right to the top then. And we just attach it to this, so it's no longer inside. We say explicitly which one it is. And we're going to have to restart this here. Okay, so now we have this arrow to show that it's scrollable in that direction. I don't think it's a very good visual indicator. I can't quickly come up with one that would make it look better. Because the issue here is that the person wants to click on it and they're going to want to scroll as well. So it's really hard. You need a decent visual indicator showing what's going to happen here. Another option might be just to put a graphic on here which fades it away. Actually, let's try that just because it's more fun. Let's do this. Put a rectangle on the right side. Alignment equals right. Width equals 50. I'm going to put a linear gradient on it. Linear gradient, and start point equals 0, 0. End point equals 1, 0. Gradient stop. Color equals... What was our background color anyways? Doesn't matter. The first one's 0, 0. Sorry. We'll do it this way. The first one is this one. With 0 opacity, and this is at, or offset. I just want to see how this looks. And this is going to be the same one with 100% opacity. And what we're doing here is we're going to create an overlay effect to make it look like it's fading away. Again, I have no idea if this is a good approach. And so it looks like it fades away. I don't know which is a better effect. Maybe that's good, maybe it's not. I don't know. When you get to the end, it suddenly disappears, which is a little bit weird. I think the fade isn't great, but it's better than the arrow. You might actually want to make it even more dominant because I think it fades away too slowly. So you can make the width maybe 100 or something. Whatever, it should be good. And we should, for completeness... Yeah, so let's get rid of the arrow because I don't want to do the clicking bit. And we should also do it to the left then as well. It may be because it's not very dominant because the colors don't change very much. If we can scroll to the left, then we put it on the left side. And then we have to change the ordering here. 0 and 1. And so we have the fading in and out now. I think this gives a visual indication. It's not a very strong one, but users are used to scrolling, so it might just be enough, because this gives a visual clue that there's something clipped. Even if it's the exact screen size, you can clearly see it's clipped and something needs to go over there without an arrow. Okay, so what do we have now? I think that covers the top. I want to put this title in. We have, the wrapping title anybody can add. I just want to put the slight title in here. We have this because we have a bit in between. This layout's getting a bit odd. Thanks, Oxygen Deprived. I think it works. And right. Where do I want to stick this on? I want to get this little text in here. And to do that, I'm going to split this off because this is getting fairly complicated. So I'm going to create another file here. I'm going to put the room selector right at the top. You can always break these up into files. I believe the tool has an extract class function. I've not used it. And where am I going now? Shift tab. Sorry. Doc panel UX class equals room selector. Room selector.ux. And in the main view, we do a room selector doc equals top. And then in the bottom, we can put a extract this out to a new file, call this one. Actually, I'm going to leave the tab because I'm going to put a difference here. Panel UX class equals item selector. item selector.ux. Then we stick an item selector here. And this makes the code a lot cleaner. We can clearly see where the things are, and that shouldn't change anything in terms of layout. So we have the item selector, room selector, and so you can see the overall structure instead. Now you can work with the item selector here and say, well, this item selector actually has two components to it. And it really depends whether this appliances thing, whether this is part of the scrolling region or not. Now I think this should be fixed because of the fact that when you scroll this up, you probably don't want to lose the fact you're in appliances, because the user might lose track of where they are. And so we'll put a big text here. So maybe this is a stack panel. Or no, again, we're doing a subtractive amount, so this is going to be a dock panel again. You can just dock inside dock inside dock. And text value equals appliances. Dock equals top. And it has a bit of a margin. It has quite a hefty margin, actually. 0, let's say 15. Font size equals 20. Color equals white. Alright, and we're missing the padding here. And this is a good thing, is that this padding should be consistent on all these things. And it feels like the padding isn't actually part of these panels. The padding is on the outside one here, the main view. So in this client panel, we actually have a sub-panel here, because this will be the main core of the panel where we say margin equals 10, and this puts everything in. Whoa, what happened there? Whoa, something weird happened. I'm going to restart the viewport there. It still has an issue when you dynamically change margin and content of things. If you ever have something weird like that, pull up the viewport restart and it should come back. Well, what did I screw up? Oh yeah, because this has to be a dock panel. That's why I screwed up. Yeah. So it's actually fine. Okay. So now we're getting closer to display, and this is a fixed amount size right here. And if you look at display, there's an add new appliance here as well. And this feels like this might be docked at the bottom as opposed to part of the scrolling display. It's really hard to say. Okay, so docked, I think. So let's put it there as well in the item selector. I'm going to put another one down here. We have a text dock equals bottom. Actually, it's not a text. It's a rectangle. Stroke width equals 1. Stroke color equals, to be consistent, I don't know. Padding equals 20, 10. And this is docked to the bottom. And it should have some margin as well. At the top, at least, top and bottom should have a margin of at least 10, I think. Have to get the spacing right because it looks like another item, or maybe not. It's hard to say. Text dock equals bottom, value equals. What did he choose for wording? Add new appliance. Whether this is the best wording or not, that's not my concern at the moment. Add new appliance is probably not so good, or maybe it is. If say it depends on the naming here, because if you're in the bedroom, you don't want to say add new bedroom. We can't do dash strokes. It has a dash stroke. We can't do that. That's not supported in most devices. Here we have the same thing here. We have this region which is scrollable. Users are more used to this. I think users will figure out that this is scrollable because they'll understand there should be more. You don't have to do the same fading because it's very common to scroll up and down in the main body of the display. People are expecting the main body of the display to be scrollable, and the first thing they'll stick their thumb on it and do it, so you might not need feedback there. And again, the other option is to stick this thing at the bottom of this selection here. And to be honest, I don't actually like add new appliance there. I think I have a better place for it. Smith, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the design is. I think, well, we have the rooms at the top for each room, and I'm not sure if the appliances, based on the UX, because I'm just doing the quick design here, I'm not sure if we have different categories, like typing of things, or just locations in the house. I assume both, but unfortunately the display doesn't show us how we would select those different types. That is, I have no selector here saying show me all the appliances, show me all the computers, show me all the lighting. I have no way to do that in this design. So I don't know what was intended for that or where I'd stick it in here. Maybe you'd have two categories at top, rooms and bedrooms. We can think about that. If we keep going with this design, we keep going with it. And I think I might come back to this one to show how we can plug in more, because I like the dynamic aspect of this. We can come back and do more with this. But so this add new appliance at the bottom, I think I've seen a better design for this before, and I'm going to go stick this in a better place. And this is what we can do with the column layout here. After the each, you can stick another item in. Don't need padding, we don't need the dock, we don't need the margin now. What do we want is a box sizing equals fill aspect. Aspect equals 1, and we want a Unicode plus. We want a big plus sign. There's sometimes fat pluses, actually a cross. Let's do a cross because they're often bigger. Oh, but that's the other one. I don't want that one. Unicode plus. This is where something like Font Awesome is sometimes helpful, because Font Awesome will have a lot of these things for you. And here you can just avoid the wording entirely. When you have a clear visual clue without wording, it's even better than trying to come up with a better word. Well, let's see if that did what I want. Okay, not quite, not quite. It's a bit too wide. Why is this too wide, though? I'm surprised that's too wide, actually. Furnish radius equals 8. And layer equals background. Should make a difference, though. Oops, no, wait, sorry. Not layer goes background. I'm not in the background there. Something fishy with the side. It's like a bit too wide. I'm trying to figure out why is it too wide. Ah, because of strokes. Yeah. We have this issue that so use the okay, that makes sense, Smith. So we should definitely find where we put the categories in. So maybe we'll revisit this app in the future and figure out where we'd stick that in the design, because it's a nice dynamic thing we'd add in, and they can come up with the actual graphics. And I think it's a decent one, because these types of terminals are becoming very common, so it'd be nice to have an example app. Now let me go and explain why this doesn't fit here, this line. And this is something that Apple has caused us a problem with. You see, when you do stroke width and stroke color, the default alignment of the stroke is centered. As opposed to if you put stroke down here as width equals 1, color equals whatever this is, this will show up in the right place now. Alright. Now the question is, why is that? And the reason is because when we first set this up, our stroke was set up for UIs, and we took the reasonable default that a stroke should be inside the shape, because this is what you want. In UI, you always want it to be inside the shape. Except along comes Apple and decides, look, we don't support stroke alignment at all. They don't support it at all, and it's a real pain. They just don't support alignment, and they center align everything, which is probably the real reason why you don't see a lot of outline things in Mac or in Apple devices, because it's just annoying. And so what happens is that when we did this, I made this stroke width and stroke color be centered by default, so it would work the same across all devices. So it's actually not the preferred default. We prefer this one that's inside, but unfortunately it's not supported on iPhone. And that's really sucks actually, because inside is the correct one. So the issue here is, so well, how do you do it? Well, in this case we can say margin equals 1. And that'll push the whole thing in, and then it'll stroke on the center, and that should make it fit inside there. So I think this has a much clearer layout. And this should be secondary color secondary. And this font size should be a lot bigger, maybe not a lot bigger, but bigger. So I think this layout here avoids the need to think of wording, and it's a clear button you can press to add a new item here. So we can avoid the bit in the bottom, so I think that's clear, you can add it, and you always know where to add it. But yeah, it really depends on the structure of this app. Are we adding something to this group, or are we adding a new appliance in a whole? If there's groupings, this add button, say if you had these buttons at the top, for example, you may actually only want to allow adding in the rooms, because if the appliance is more of a filter, then you wouldn't add to a filter. But if the filters are just arbitrary and you can select from items in the room, maybe you might. So it might be a selection thing here. We don't know what we're intending to do with that UX. Okay, what else? I'm just looking at the display of it, see what else we had to fix here. Now the one little bit I want to fix is that, I'm going to do this short data bit here first, is that these items we have a fixed amount. What we'd really like to say is this is showing the current room, and the room is selected up here. Yeah, I think Smith is okay. If you click the button here, this button's permanent. So this button's permanent. You notice in the code I just put a button, a fixed button at the end. So it's always going to be there. I mean, you add something else and it'll be there. It's not a problem. It's just never going to go away. It'll just keep moving down based on how many items there are. But when you stick it here, it adapts to however many items you have in the display. Uh-oh. Oh, I crashed it. We have this thing, and we have too many items, it seems to crash. Oh, sorry about that. I gotta kill this again. We are working on that issue. We have it filed, and we're waiting to fix some other refactoring before I get that. Just when you have too many items, if you slowly drag it, it causes that crash. And I forgot to put my Mac on the ground, so you might hear the fan getting all excited now. What do we have? Smart Home app. Is it loading? Wow, my Mac really got crazy loud now. Okay. Yeah, let's just let that load up. And over here we can reduce this a bit. Alright. So now, actually, so you see this just flows in with the other devices right at the end. Now we're in the bigger mode. But I wanted to get this, so this is actually a selection at the top, and the selected item goes down here. In the main state, what we're going to do is we're going to put these items in the contain the room instead. And stick them in the room. This is part of the reason I think I'm crashing is things are a bit slow is because of the fact I'm running the streaming, and the MacBook Pro it's really not a machine that you should be running streaming on at the same time, because I have just too much running here. I have the streaming and the visuals and it's live, and so we're running pretty close. It's using up the CPU quite a bit, and so I have issues with that, and it's got the max RAM, but usually it's more stable. Just in the stream it's pretty bad. Alright, so what I did is I set these rooms up, and I want to say this dot selected room equals this dot room 0. And I put all the items in the room. We're just copying them for now. It's not really dynamic. And what we can do here and this is where it gets really weird, is we're going to say, well, the item selector, it's inside a room. So we're going to say with data equals, what do I call it, selected room? Selected room. Selected room. All right. Now nothing changes, so you're not convinced I did anything. So what I'm going to do is going to make, when you click on one of these, it selects a different room. Wow, it's going to be a bit hard now. Room selector. We have this. I'm going to make these tappable. When tapped, and when clicked. There's background, stack panel. Tapped equals select room. And I'm not using the selection engine right now. I'm just going to make this use a simple tapped interface. The selection engine would actually make more sense, but it's quicker to set up this for this thing. You have to decide whether things are actually selected or you're really navigation. If you're navigation, you don't use selection engine. If it's actually selected, and then selection engine. And every time I talk, I forget which thing I was working on. Room selector is select room. Select room goes here, and it has args. You need this dot selected room equals args dot data. And that just happens to be the one that was selected. And of course, you're not going to see anything because of the fact that you see just a minor flicker. It's because each of these rooms has the exact same items in it. So I'm just wondering how I can quickly do it. Is there a... How can I quickly do this so I don't have these things here? A bit of randomness I want or not. So each so what I'm actually doing is that when you click on these things, you have a different name of the room. And actually I can do this partially because in the item selector here where it says appliances, or we now can actually use the title. So at least we can see the title change. I said we could see the title change. No, it's supposed to be working data selected room. Oh, name. I don't choose, so name. And that would have shown up in the problems area here. I want to point to my screen always. I forget you can't see me. Point to the screen. Okay. Alright, so now you can at least see the title change when I click on this. Bedroom, dining room. Now they each have the same items in it, but at least this is dynamic now. So let's try and get it a little bit varying here, a little bit. I think we can do, let's just fix the number of items. This sort of rooms, let's just say this one has 3 items, this one has 5 items, and this one has 10 items. How many are in here? I think there's 12 in there. And we're just going to cheat quickly. This dot items equals this dot items dot splice. Splice, I don't know what it is. At 0, this dot items dot length minus count, I guess, is how many I delete. Did it actually work, or? No, that didn't work. But that has fewer. Does it? Should be 3. The bedroom should have 3 items, so why did it not work? This dot items dot splice. I may not have convinced it to reload the state. Let me just check to make sure it reloaded the state first. Refresh this. No. Splice should have worked. Why did splice not work? Let's check console.log this dot items dot length. Eight, 6, and 0, so I stripped out too many on one. Wait, I got this backwards somehow. This is the number of items to delete. So we take the length minus count. Oh, crap, these are all the same items. How do you clone an array in JavaScript? Clone array. I don't know. Yeah, you should probably type JavaScript. Actually, I don't want a clone. I want a slice. Actually, I really don't understand why this isn't working. Where are these items coming from? Why are they set up this way? 8, 6, and 0. If I take this out, does it actually change it? 11, 11, and 11. Fine. It's like it's doing it backwards. Do I have splice backwards? JavaScript splice. It says index, number of items to remove, start, delete count. Okay, why is it? I'm actually wondering why it doesn't work. What's wrong with my logic here? I have the count of the array, and I want to remove count items from it. So I splice from 0, and I remove all the items except for the count. And so I have something wrong, because that should not be 8, 6, and 0. It should be 3, 5, and 11. What the hell? Why is it 8, 6, and 0? I mean, this that 11 minus 3 is 8, but this is the removal count. This is how much it's supposed to remove. Oh, I know why, because it gives you back the items that were removed. There we go. That makes more sense. JavaScript auto array functions. Alright, so each of them, you can actually see me switching the rooms now. That was the sole purpose of doing that, just so that when you click the rooms, you actually have different rooms here. So now we have the basic selector. We have these rooms. We have one more thing I want to add to the top here, and the reason I added this to the rooms here is that a room has an energy level. And the room selector we had Smith, I get the same thing. Talking to yourself is somehow helpful. What we wanted to put in the stack panel here was the total energy. We wanted to say text value equals, how do you say in the display here, used. I'll just put the energy used, and I'm going to say total energy kilowatt hours used. I don't know why I put used. It's very clear. There's no reason. There's nothing else it could be possibly doing there. And we have this total energy value now, but where does the total energy come from? Well, it's the addition of all those energies there. So we can put a get total energy. And we can use the JavaScript reduce syntax. Ooh, how do we do that? Ooh, this dot items dot reduce, and I forget the syntax of reduce. Yeah, I do that, Smith, as well. So Smith is, yeah. Funny, talking to yourself and you suddenly say, ha, I actually do that. Usually on the streams. And when I'm sitting coding alone, I don't talk to myself at all. I'm just doing it mainly for the streams. Although I do say huh, I realize when I'm sitting my own sometimes I just go like huh. That's, you know, that's the safer stream version of what I actually say. By the time I say that, it's usually something quite different. Reduce. Callback initial value. The callback should take 2 values, an initial value. Okay, so we're going to make a sum function here. A comma B. Yeah, exactly, Smith. That's the one. A plus. Can you do this in JavaScript? I forget if this is what JavaScript does. You can do this expression, and the initial value is 0. Does that work? No, it gives us objects. Oh yeah, dot energy dot value plus b dot value. So I have some not a numbers in here. We have not a numbers, which is not a good value to have. That's a lot of kilowatt hours, maybe, not a number. And why do we have that? This dot, oh, because I called it energy. And there's still no energy though. What? Do I have my reduce syntax incorrect? I have energy. I want to just add up all the energy. And let me just check something. Console.log this.item0.energy. Let's just make sure they have energy in them. Oh, I have another debug somewhere. No, apparently I don't. Alright, so why does this not work? Probably because this doesn't work. I'm thinking of a different language. Or not. Come on, let's refresh. I'm not convinced I have it wrong, but I might. Alright. There must be a way to do an accumulator right here. Accumulator current value plus current. No, that should have worked. That was supposed to work just the way it was. I don't know why it's not accumulating these values. Okay, I've got my JavaScript syntax wrong. Somehow let e equals 0 for... I forgot how to do for loop too. Man, that's terrible. For I've been working with too many languages lately. I do a stream on Rust as well, and it's a different for loop. I've been working on C++ from a compiler. For Fuse, I'm actually writing in C#, and I'm actually working on my Leaf language as well, which has another for syntax. So you'll have to excuse me if I sometimes just get like blocks into what the syntax is. So I'm going to use the old syntax here. This.items.length I plus. Because the reduced syntax doesn't appear to be working, and I don't know why. I just want to make sure if it's actually my syntax or it's something else that's not working. Alright, so my reduced syntax is invalid. I don't understand why. If somebody can tell me why this syntax is invalid, I'd really love to know. This summation up here seems to work, but this one down here doesn't work, and it's can't type to figure this out. Figure out why. Okay, but what I wanted to show with this very low contrast font, I really like higher contrast. Color equals, what do we use for the other one? There we go. The point here was to show that we have a total here, and this is from JS. We made a getter for this, Now what I haven't shown yet, because we don't have any dynamic aspect, is that if you updated this if you updated the items, you would actually get this total updated as well. And so we can quickly add another one here called, let's do something, add item. Let's add something really quickly. Let's just always add PlayStation to the end. This .items.push. And in the item selector, that button at the end now, we can put a clicked handler on this called add item. So now when we add an item, if it actually got there, it adds the PlayStation and the values update. We're in the bedroom, and so we click it. Oh, and I don't have a clickable area. That's why it's so hard to click, is I gotta do a hit test mode equals local bounds. So now you see that the kilowatt hours goes up as we add items, and you'll see the little plus sign move along. This is what we wanted to show before. So if we go to another room, we add it, and we're just adding always the same one. And yeah, Smith, megawatt hours, megawatts. I think this app is for homes, and I'm really hoping we don't have a home that has megawatts in it. If you were doing a very dynamic app, you'd actually want to, dynamically format this to actually choose whether you're using joules, megawatt hours, kilowatt hours. But for a home app, I'm really hoping you can get away with kilowatt hours. But as we mentioned originally, the original of the show here is that it was actually just showing watts. So this guy's house, just in watts, not even kilowatt hours, his lights are currently using 25 kilowatts. So as I said, and his fan's using 15 kilowatts. So this guy's house is sucking power like unbelievable amounts. Of course he needs the air conditioner because he has 25 kilowatts of lighting. He obviously needs the air conditioner to keep himself cool inside there and the TVs and stuff. And actually, I don't think this air conditioner is going to do it. It's got 50 kilowatts compared to like several hundred kilowatts there being burnt. So his house is really hot. So I assume he meant kilowatt hours, and that's what I did here. Okay, but that shows the basics, and I think that's where I'm going to leave it off today. We have the basic going through the rooms. I showed how we can do a basic dynamic part for adding it, and this is a responsive display. I'm not going to move it too much, but you can get multiple items. So this is responsive based on layout. What I wanted to do, and I think I'm going to follow up this, is when you're in actual layout mode. So let's go back to here. When you do a device flip aspect, when you're in this mode, this top display no longer really makes sense. What I wanted to do is when it's on this mode, put it on the left-hand side instead. And actually, can I do this quickly? Let me check if I can actually do this a bit quicker. Main view, and we have a room selector. Ooh, that's going to be a bit hard. Let's do it next time. There's a way. Actually, let's try it. Equals rooms. Wow, window landscape. Assuming it's in portrait mode otherwise. Change rooms.dock equals left. I don't know if we can dynamically change dock. Yes, we can. It goes to the left-hand side then. But in the room selector now, this is what I want to do. In the room selector, we have a few different things we have to change. The direction, we have to change all of this, but let's not worry about that first. The key thing I want to change is that while in landscape mode, change room scroll dot allowed scroll directions equals vertical. And UX name equals room stack. Change room stack dot orientation equals vertical. And I'm going to have to make a fixed. This is going to be a bit difficult here. All right. So this gives a very quick demonstration of how to do landscape and portrait mode orientation. I don't have the correct scrolling on here, of course. But if you go to viewport now and you go back to flip aspect, you notice how I move the whole thing to the top and bottom. And this is what I can do with landscape, is that in a phone mode you might want this at the top, but in a tablet with all that extra space, when you flip it, you put it on the side instead and have the scrolling over here instead, and then put the other display over here. And this is probably more suited to a tablet display or even a small phone display. And the way I did this without nice design quickly is that I put a wow window landscape trigger, and this is basically your, it doesn't say whether you're a tablet or a phone. There is actually no way to know that. You can't really know if you're in a tablet or a phone. You can just check densities, but you're basically going to do landscape anyways. So landscape mode says use this layout instead, and all I did is I changed the docking. Instead of docking at the top, I docked to the left, and this is one of the advantages of a dock panel. It's subtractive, so you can actually just move things around and change the docking based on the layout. And also in the room selector itself, I said if using this other panel, we're going to change the scroll directions, and we're going to change the layout direction to do that. And you should change, I don't have them here, but you should also put your while scrollables to show that there's more items here to scroll. And that'll actually put the little fading, because what we don't have is we don't have the fading at the top, which we do in this other mode. And that's just a little bit more. Just put 2 more while scrollables, which direction, and you should be okay. But I'm okay with this so far. I mean, the design is very basic, but mainly I wanted to show how to do the varying sizes. And when you change the size of this, you see it adapts. And we actually changed the layout. Both we used the layout here, so if you have a lot more items on it, you get more items. And we also have the aspect layout now, wherever this is, to get 2 entirely different layouts, and based on the sizes. And so we have the column layout, we have the docking switching, the landscape, and these are dynamic things here. So we add new ones, we get more. And I also show the energy being added as you add things. The energy is dynamically calculated. That comes from the total energy here. And I hope you can see this isn't that much code, and this thanks, Smith. I think this would look good on a tablet. It looks a lot like the point of sale systems I've seen. And we have a fix for the energy. Thank you, Nkoyan. And that's correct, because the first one is that one. So we're just going to bravely delete this. There we go. That's the fix we wanted. I knew reduce should work. So when we click this, now it goes up. Perfect. Thank you, Nkoyan, for that. We have that fixed energy. And so this energy getter, it responds to new items being added. So this is part of the reactive nature of the data. It just automatically updates the display. And you notice also in the main display, we just say while item selected. So whenever you change it, this is a dynamic selector, and it updates the data and it goes through. And it's a relatively quick way to do these things. And obviously at this point, you would want one of your graphic designers to come in and show them this and say, look, we need the landscape layout. Because as with a lot of things in Drupal seems to be focused on portrait mode layout. Although if you're designing for a mobile device, you should absolutely consider both layouts, and you should consider responsiveness as well. Not just the orientation, but the actual size of the thing, because it's going to be different in every single device. And I think that's my show for today. I can't be here on Wednesday to do the show. I might continue this on Thursday. If not Thursday, I think I'll pick up this one next week. And we'll add a bit more details of the loading, maybe how we could actually do these things. So I think it's an interesting one because it's a realistic use case. The design is very basic, but it's a realistic use case for data and adding things. We used to do card games, and the card game's good, but I think this is a better case of how to do it. And now I'd like to show how you actually add things, what would actually happen in the ad, how you do different categories, and so I think it's an interesting one. We should come back to it, but I'm going to leave it at this for today. I'll publish the code as it is now, so be on the GitHub account, and I'll throw it in the comments there. I can actually just show you roughly where the account is. If you use demos, this is always on my GitHub account. I copy this into the chat. So I put all my demos here, And this one will probably be in a place called whatever I called it. I can't remember what I called it, but you'll see it. It'll show up there. It should be obvious. Okay. And so it'll be there. I'll publish it. I'll push it up there right away. Thank you very much for watching. Please follow the show if you're not already, and follow me on Twitter. And if you have any questions on this code when I see it, just head over to the Slack or to the forum and post them, and we'll get you an answer out what you can do with it. Thank you very much.